but there's no transportation.
You're taking it away from the kids.
Is this the signal that you think you should be sending as superintendent to accept a benefit like this?
I think the important thing for the public...
I know there were parents who were concerned about basic services.
Yes.
It was a horrendously wrong choice by this board.
Good evening. Over the past few months, we investigated your public schools.
We examined thousands of documents and spoke to superintendents from 60 different districts. Jasmine and I took a hard look at where your tax dollars are going.
Tonight, we will show you what administrators are earning in some of the largest area districts, how some districts choose to spend your tax dollars on cross-country trips with little apparent benefit for students, and most importantly, the trickle-down effect of how a bad district truly affects the entire community.
And while we expose what some critics call wasteful spending, that they say brings nothing of value back to the classroom, we'll also show what it takes to rebuild a troubled district and how your involvement is key.
Of course, when you take a look at a school district, you see a face, and that face is the superintendent. When we return, a look at how your district superintendent is compensated. The numbers may surprise you. At a time when every dollar counts in public education, why are so many local superintendents making so much money?
The salaries and perks are sparking outrage in some communities.
My heart is with these kids.
You could feel the anger.
People are upset.
Directed at Ferguson Florissant Superintendent Jeff Spiegel.
I think it's ridiculous.
And the board that gave Spiegel and his wife free lifetime health care just for him agreeing to one more year on the job.
It was a horrendously wrong choice by this board.
According to the district, the board cut the deal with Spiegel just before it cut $15.5 million from the district budget.
You're taking it away from the kids.
Is this the signal that you think you should be sending as superintendent to accept a benefit like this?
I think the important thing for the public to understand is that right now it has not cost the district one dime.
But that's only because Spiegel hasn't retired. You're pushing aside the fact that the school board president just said it could very well cost the district over $200,000.
It could, but that depends on whether I'm employed someplace else or not.
But board president Les Lentz insists the deal will save the district money because Spiegel's replacement would probably make even more than the roughly $240,000 a year he receives in salary and benefits.
But it's a cheap investment in the overall investment of our district.
But how can it be a cheap investment if even he admits the board doesn't know how much it could cost taxpayers?
It's obscene. It's astronomical.
Audrey Spalding is a researcher at the Show Me Institute, a fiscally conservative think tank. She personally reviewed the contracts of about 450 Missouri school district superintendents for a study published 4 months ago.
In my review of superintendent contracts, no superintendent was ever awarded a lifetime benefit that he or she didn't have to at least pay for or continue working for the school district. I've never seen a superintendent awarded free health coverage for as long as he wants to use it.
But Spiegel isn't the only local superintendent getting extraordinary perks. When Hazelwood's new superintendent signed his contract, paying him $235,000 a year in salary plus benefits, one of those benefits was getting 180 sick days up front, even though current district policy only allows administrators to get 13 days of sick time at the beginning of their tenure. I can't find any other contract that gives this many sick days at the beginning of a superintendent's tenure.
Okay.
So clearly every other school district in the metro area believes it was able to entice a qualified superintendent without giving them this many sick days.
But you know, Craig, you have to remember we're the second largest school district in the county. Okay, we're the second largest district, and there is a lot of accountability that is placed upon him, and we have high expectations of him, and we want to retain him at any cost.
Superintendent Steve Price will have a lot of help if he uses those sick days. Hazelwood has 9 assistant superintendents, the most in the metro area.
We're trying to get the best return we can for the dollar, serving almost 19,000 students in this district. So do I think the number of assistants here is appropriate? Yes, absolutely.
Our investigation found 10 local superintendents make salaries in excess of $200,000 a year, some receiving tens of thousands of dollars a year in retirement contributions. And many of them have other stunning benefits too. The Clayton superintendent gets a car allowance of $750 a month. But the biggest salary and quite possibly the largest overall compensation package doesn't go to Price or Spiegel. Kirkwood Superintendent Dr. Tom Williams, hired just a year ago, makes a salary of $242,000 plus $42,000 a year in benefits, a total of $284,000, even though Kirkwood has just 5,000 students. Why is Superintendent Williams making so much money in a district like this?
Dr. Williams is an investment in our kids.
There are 6 St. Louis area districts that are more than triple the size of Kirkwood, and 3 districts, Clayton, Ladue, and the much larger Parkway district, all have higher composite ACT scores than Kirkwood. Can you explain why your superintendent deserves more money than those superintendents?
Craig, I can't respond to the other districts and what the superintendents make and what their board has provided those superintendents, but I can tell you this. This community, the Kirkwood School District community, is a very proud community. They have high expectations for this district.
Is part of this about being able to say that Kirkwood has the highest paid superintendent?
No.
Bragging rights?
No.
Superintendent Spiegel and the Ferguson-Florissant board aren't bragging either.
It says for him and his wife.
But they are defending the lifetime health care benefit to the end.
They made me an offer, and I accepted it.
Jeff Spiegel will be 56 when he retires next year.
But it is not just the big districts who are paying out big bucks to administrators.
What about the smaller districts where every penny counts, even more so for them? Why are some of the smallest districts in the metro area paying so much money to their top administrators?
We just looked at big school districts like Hazelwood and Ferguson-Florissant. Supporters in those districts say the superintendent earns every cent for overseeing so many students.
But what about some of the smallest districts in the metro area? Districts where total enrollment is only a few thousand, or in the case of one district, a mere 800 students. Oh, hey, how are you, Superintendent? I'm in a parking lot across the street from the Brentwood Superintendent's office. We were hoping we could talk with you about your contract. We are here. Sure, on camera. And Superintendent Dr. Charles Penberthy is there because he refuses to discuss his lucrative contract. I don't need to take a lot of your time. That contract pays him $216,000 a year in salary plus benefits for running a district with just 800 students, one of the smallest in the metro area. $216,000 a year.
Oh, that does seem out of line.
Charles Bryant lives in Brentwood and graduated from the high school.
And I don't know of anything outstanding that he's done that would warrant that kind of an exceptional pay.
Brentwood High, which has won national recognition, has very good test scores in recent years, but they are far from the best in the area. You don't want to go on camera? But Dr. Penberthy didn't want to talk about that either. Certainly wouldn't take any more time if you talked with us on camera than if you talk with me on the phone. Brentwood Board President Keith Rabenberg, the managing partner of a downtown St. Louis law firm, also refused to be interviewed on camera. During a telephone conversation, Rabenberg insisted that the superintendent's salary is a good deal for Brentwood based on Penberthy's experience, skills, and the lack of support staff for his position.
This is Progress South Elementary.
Many superintendents with far more responsibility than Penberthy actually make much less than the Brentwood superintendent.
We'll see how quick we can get them off the lot.
Fort Zumwalt Superintendent Dr. Bernie Dubray has been in the district for 28 years. Fort Zumwalt has 24 schools. Brentwood has 4. Fort Zumwalt has an enrollment of nearly 19,000, which is 23 times larger than Brentwood's. Yet Penberthy receives a salary that's $42,000 a year higher than Dubray's.
I think people feel that I've been fair with them, and that's one of the ways you show that, especially in difficult financial times.
Is keeping your salary down to what you believe is defensible.
Yes. I think there's a paternalistic quality to that. You look out for other people before you look out for yourself.
In Edwardsville, Superintendent Dr. Ed Hightower runs a district with 14 schools and an enrollment of 7,500. He receives a $164,000 salary, $52,000 less than Brentwood's superintendent.
I don't get concerned about what other superintendents are making. Every community has to be comfortable with its superintendent.
Not far from Edwardsville, the board for O'Fallon Township High School District fiercely defends the contract it gave Superintendent Dr. Darcy Benway. It's a district with only one high school, but Benway still earns $210,000 in salary and benefits.
That's what we negotiated. I don't know what to tell you. We think we've got a bargain. She does a great job.
O'Fallon Township High now has 2 campuses and is widely recognized as the best high school in the Metro East, certainly one of the best in the metro area. But no matter how good it is, should she really have what may be the most lucrative contract in the Metro East?
Is that out of whack?
Yeah, it's extremely out of whack.
Our objective is to have the best people run our schools. And that's what we try to hire. That's who we have.
The finding in our study showed that one of the best determinants for superintendent compensation is district enrollment. So you would expect a smaller school district to pay its superintendent less.
I don't know how you can fault us for not giving you a chance to comment.
At least O'Fallon gave us an interview.
Thank you, sir.
Brentwood just didn't feel the need.
And consider this, the Ladue district, which is widely considered one of the best in Missouri, is nearly 5 times larger than Brentwood, has 2 more schools, and much higher test scores than Brentwood. Ladue's superintendent earns $32,000 a year less in salary than Brentwood's superintendent.
To see the compensation for nearly 60 superintendents, go to the interactive map on our website, KMOV.com.
So far tonight, we focused quite a bit on superintendents, but what does it take to make a good district leader? We hear from an expert on education next.
And what about school boards? These are your elected officials. Are they being held accountable? Wait until you see what we uncovered.
A successful school district can't function without strong leadership.
We spoke with one of the leading experts on what you should expect from your district leaders. You're the director of a program at Maryville that prepares educators for leadership roles, and you were an educator yourself, a principal for more than 2 decades. You know, when we talk about leadership, how important is leadership to the success of a school district?
I wouldn't say that it's everything, but without it, you have nothing. Leadership is like being the CEO of an organization. The success of a school, the success of a business, the success of a political entity is going to be tied into solid leadership, good leadership, forward-thinking leadership, and then someone who's strong enough to hold the organization to its mission.
Taxpayers don't just depend on the superintendent. They also rely on school board members to make good decisions. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
I would agree. Ultimately, the superintendent, while an employee of the district, is the employee of the Board of Education. It's the Board of Education that sets the parameters, that sets the salaries, that decides what their community wants in a CEO, what results they expect to gain from that particular package. There's boards that are elected in Brentwood and in Maplewood and in Jennings and in Riverview and in Parkway and in St. Charles County that are independent to a degree in terms of how they make those decisions. So you can't really compare them. You can't generalize and say all boards are or no boards are, because they're all independent.
Does it say something to you when you hear that a local school board is spending money on travel within town, or that they're misusing taxpayer dollars?
It always bothers me when I hear somebody is misusing taxpayer dollars, because the important thing with dollars is that it goes to the education of kids.
What signal does it send to families and taxpayers when the money is being misspent?
Well, if the money is being misspent, the signal is somebody should be watchdogging the money. What decisions go into why a conference is attended or travel is made, Those things all impact ultimately in some way or another on those students.
A recent presentation before the St. Louis Public School Board showed that both teachers and parents see weak leadership as an obstacle to success. Now, as we mentioned, this obstacle does not only lie with the administrators. We recently looked into board members as well.
Our investigation uncovers some school districts spending a lot of money on travel for school board members. One board has been on a cross-country spending spree that is startling when compared to other local districts. Its road trips include a stay in Las Vegas.
Director Johnson.
The Jennings School Board oversees one of the most troubled districts in the metro area. Miranda Jones is the Jennings Board Vice President.
I don't want to be up here and not know what I'm talking about.
That need to know is why board members say they'll do whatever and travel wherever to learn what it takes to turn things around, partly because the problems in Jennings can seem so overwhelming to them.
Here I am as a person that's in charge of trying to lead the educational future of over 3,000 kids. It is so scary to me because my daughter is in this district.
School district records obtained by News 4 show Jennings board members spent $71,000 on training and travel for professional development during the last 2 fiscal years, easily enough to hire an experienced teacher for a year. The expenses include $28,458 to the National School Boards Association for memberships and conferences, among them a trip for 4 board members to last year's national convention in Chicago.
There are other school boards that have stopped going to conferences because of the economy, because they're making cuts, because they think it sends the wrong signal to their employees and to the community.
It's the wrong signal to understand what is going on in the educational system when things are changing daily, monthly, and yearly.
But the out-of-state overnight trips aren't the ones that surprised us the most. 9 months ago, the board held a retreat at a St. Louis DoubleTree hotel. 5 board members and an administrator each got a room and spent the night. How close is that hotel to Jennings? We drove from the school board office to the DoubleTree.
It took us 26 minutes to drive from the Jennings School District offices to the DoubleTree Hotel.
According to a reimbursement form signed a month later by the superintendent, the total cost of those 6 rooms was $680.
We were there till 1 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't want to have to drive home at 1 o'clock. We had to be back up at 7. You think it's best that we just recklessly, leave? This was a retreat.
I don't. You use the word recklessly. You really think driving 20 minutes home would have been
it's not
being
20
reckless?
Minutes. It's not 20 minutes from my house, but maybe 20 from.
It's a 20-minute drive from this office to the hotel.
Well, we had a retreat, and all of us didn't stay, but the majority of the board did stay.
John Schlereth is one of the board members who spent the night.
Can you explain why you spent the night at a St. Louis hotel when you lived just 20 minutes away?
It was a board retreat, and they felt like it was.
They? How about you?
The board felt like it'd be better to be somewhere else. That's where the accommodations were at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why
Thank
didn't you have your accommodations at your house?
Thank you.
Thank you.
But that wasn't the last time a Jennings board member spent the night at a local hotel. 4 months ago, new board member David Green got his state-mandated training at the DoubleTree in Chesterfield, about a 30-minute drive from Jennings. He spent the night, too.
You don't think that's a waste of taxpayers' money to have local school board members spending the night at a local hotel?
There was one school board member who stayed there for a mandatory meeting. He didn't have any transportation to get back, so I didn't think that was abuse.
In all, we examined more than $120,000 in direct board expenses during a 2-year period, which is more than 10 times the amount spent by nearly every other board we examined. The Jennings board did pick up undisclosed costs for administrators, but it also spent $6,000 on flowers, $2,800 on photos of themselves, and $15,000 on vague references like board expenses or replenishing petty cash. The board insists it's spending money responsibly because it could have spent much more. Las Vegas is a neon-wrapped gambler's paradise, a sin city that proved irresistible to the Cahokia School Board.
They said we was required to take seminars, and that's why I went.
Larry Wynn and 5 other board members flew to Vegas 15 months ago.
But you're not required to go to Las Vegas because you're a school board member.
It's required to have seminars. That's what I went for, that particular seminar.
Joining Wynn in Vegas were board members Willie Baxton, Yvette McFadden, Peggy Shelton, Mary Ann Spicer, and Linda Stoltz. The only board member who didn't go was Rich Sauget. According to the sponsor, the event wasn't intended for board members. Instead, it was designed by practitioners for practitioners, which meant teachers, administrators, and district staff, so they could strengthen their high school redesign efforts. The 4-day-long trip cost taxpayers $10,612.
You could have gone to a seminar almost anywhere.
I went to Las Vegas.
The Vegas conference was just the beginning. 5 months later, 6 board members spent several days in Chicago attending the Illinois School Board Convention. That cost taxpayers $8,862. Mary Ann Spicer is the board president.
At a time when Illinois still owes you almost $2.5 million for last year's budget, there are people that might look at this and consider this unnecessary spending.
I don't think so. I mean, I have gained a lot of knowledge from attending these classes.
2 months after the state convention in Chicago, board member Linda Stoltz went to a conference in Phoenix at a cost of $2,565. And 2 months after that, in April of this year, all 7 board members went to the National School Board Convention in Chicago for 3 days, costing taxpayers another $14,310. In all, those 4 trips to Vegas, Chicago, Phoenix, and back to Chicago cost taxpayers nearly $36,000.
I have parents that come up to me and ask me, well, why are you doing this, or why are you doing this? And I was able to give them a knowledgeable answer that satisfied them. Had I not gone to any of these conferences or meetings, I would have looked like...
Should school boards be traveling that much?
In my view, no.
Dr. Garrett Duncan is an associate professor of education at Washington University. One of his main areas of research is morals in education.
I'll just say this. You have a number of entities where there's a school board or a city council, a department within a university, where the leaders see their budgets as their own personal endowments, and they will do with it what they want.
Our investigation found that when it comes to expensive long-distance road trips, the Cahokia School Board is in a class of its own. For example, the Edwardsville Board spent less during the last 7 years than Cahokia did in 1.
We don't choose to use any national conferences where you have travel outside the state of Illinois.
Why?
Simply because of cost and doing the benefit.
During just a 10-month period in 2009-2010, Cahokia spent almost $36,000. During the last fiscal year, the Edwardsville district spent $4,100. Parkway, one of the biggest and wealthiest in Missouri, spent $3,600. And Clayton, one of the richest and most successful districts in the Midwest, spent just $894.
And that's their prerogative.
In other words, Cahokia spent more tax money in Las Vegas than Edwardsville, Parkway, and Clayton spent the entire year.
You could have gone to a seminar almost anywhere.
I went to Las Vegas.
Cahokia School Board member Larry Wynn told us that Illinois School Board members are required to get training and go to seminars, but they're not.
When we first requested records from the Cahokia district, they failed to tell us about that trip to Las Vegas, apparently hoping that what happened in Vegas stayed in Vegas. But a source told us about the trip, and a few days later, we got our records.
If you think the Cahokia Board's trips are outrageous, our investigation also reveals one district spent more than $300 a night for a hotel room in Memphis.
And another district helped pay for an administrator's trip to Australia. That's right, Australia. Who are they, and how do the districts defend that? That and more when Your Public Schools returns.